The Israeli F-15 survived with only one wing. The last thing you would ever imagine is flying in a plane without one wing. How is that even possible? But this incredible event actually happened when an Israeli F-15, one of the most powerful and capable air superiority fighters in the world, lost an entire wing in a mid-air collision and still managed to land safely. But how did this happen? And what led to the collision in the first place? Well, let's find out. Despite entering service nearly 50 years ago, the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle remains one of the most potent and capable air superiority fighters on the planet. It may not be as technologically advanced as its fifth-generation counterparts like the F-22 Raptor and F-35 Joint Strike Fighter, but what it lacks in stealth, the F-15 makes up for it with incredible engineering and brute force. This aircraft is so capable and powerful that a pilot once flew an F-15 for 10 miles and landed it after losing the entire right wing. The story of the F-15's resilience is rooted in the intense competition of the Cold War. Throughout much of the 50s and 60s, the Soviet Union appeared to be winning. They dominated the space race, being the first to put a satellite, an animal, and a person into orbit and reach the Moon, Venus, and Mars with probes. On Earth, their fighters were among the best. The MiG-23, with its sweep wing design, was seen as superior to America's F-4 Phantom. However, the real game changer was the Soviet MiG-25, which posed a significant threat to American air superiority. When the Pentagon first got wind of the MiG-25 Foxbat in 1970, its large wing area and powerful twin engines suggested to intelligence analysts that it was a formidable air superiority fighter. This concern grew in March 1971 when Israeli radar operators detected an unusual Soviet aircraft traveling at an astonishing Mach 3.2 at altitudes higher than the F-4 or even the Soviet MiG-23 could reach. When the aircraft returned months later, Israeli fighters attempted to intercept it, but it simply sped past them at over Mach 3. Faced with this new Soviet superjet and limited information about it, the US Air Force intensified their efforts to develop a purpose-built dogfighter capable of matching the Foxbat. Within 5 years, the F-15 Eagle entered service, designed specifically to counter the MiG-25 threat. The F-15 could fly at speeds exceeding Mach 2.5, powered by Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW220 afterburning turbofans that produce more thrust than the aircraft's drag and weight combined. This incredible power allowed the F-15 to accelerate even while flying straight up. Its high thrust-to-weight ratio, coupled with a low weight-to-wing area, gave it exceptional maneuverability. The Air Force believed this combination of speed, power, and agility would make the F-15 superior to the Soviet MiG-25. Of course, just a few years later, the United States would get their hands on a MiG-25 thanks to defecting Soviet pilot Flight Lieutenant Viktor Ivanovich Belenko. The world soon learned that the frightening Foxbat wasn't all that scary after all. Its impressive speed was the result of numerous design compromises. In reality, the MiG-25 was never an air superiority fighter. It was an intercept platform designed to quickly close in on American bombers, not to engage in acrobatic dogfights against other jets. In the years that followed, the F-15, an aircraft designed to compete with what was imagined to be an unmatched air dominance fighter, proved its superiority time and again. It scored numerous victories, particularly at the hands of Israeli pilots. The first air-to-air kill by an F-15 was logged by an Israeli in 1979, and since then, Israeli pilots have achieved over 60 more shootdowns from the cockpit of Eagles. But perhaps the most incredible feat by an Israeli pilot came on May 1, 1983. On this day, elements of the Israeli Air Force's 106 and 116 squadrons soared over the Negev desert for a training exercise. This drill involved 2 new F-15Ds facing off against 4 older A4N Skyhawks. The scenario was an airfield defense exercise, with the F-15s acting as defenders and the A4s as aggressors. Though dated attack aircraft, the Skyhawks had numbers and experienced pilots on their side. One of the F-15s was piloted by Zivi Nadevi, who is still learning to handle the powerful jet under the guidance of Yehar Gal, an experienced F-15 pilot seated in the back. At the time, the F-15 was a relatively new addition to the Israeli Air Force, having entered service in the US in 1976 and in Israel the following year. Despite being new, its reputation was already formidable. Nadevi's F-15, known as Baz or Falcon 957, had already scored 4 kills against MiGs in the Lebanon War a year earlier. In the US, pilots must maintain a safety bubble of at least 500 feet around each aircraft during training to prevent collisions during the high-speed dogfighting maneuvers known as basic fighter maneuvers. This concept quickly became relevant as the Israeli F-15s engaged the A-4s. The skies soon filled with the sound of jets as Skyhawks and Eagles maneuvered for position. After intense maneuvering, the No. 3 Skyhawk, tail number 374, targeted Nadevi's wingman in the other F-15. However, Nadevi's Baz 957 was positioned just above and behind the Skyhawk, ready to fire its simulated missiles. As the Skyhawk pilot inverted and began to climb, unaware of Nadevi's position above him, the two jets collided. The pilot of the Skyhawk was automatically ejected and his aircraft disintegrated. The Eagle's right wing was sheared off roughly 2 feet from the root. Can you imagine the chaos? Nadevi, although technically the student, was senior in rank to his instructor and chose not to eject as he regained some control, still unaware of the extent of the damage. As the plane leveled off, he and Guile looked over their right shoulders to see a wall of fuel vapor pouring out from the wing area. The cloud of fuel obscured the true extent of the damage. When Nadevi tried reducing their airspeed, the aircraft began to roll again. Knowing there was an airstrip just over 10 miles away, Nadevi made a crucial decision. He engaged the F-15's 2 powerful afterburners, increasing each engine's output from 14,590 pounds of force to a whopping 23,770 pounds. Despite fuel pouring from the wing and the twin Pratt & Whitney F-100 PW220 engines burning through the remaining fuel, this bold move leveled the aircraft and set them on course for the airstrip. What Nadevi and Guile still didn't realize was that their mid-air collision with the Skyhawk had completely sheared off the entire right wing of their F-15, leaving only a 2-foot stump. With 10 miles to cover and barely any fuel left, the two men were achieving the impossible, flying an F-15 with just 1 wing. But the big question is, how did this aircraft land? The sight that awaited them was shocking. As they slowed down on the runway, their wingman radioed, "You won't believe what you flew in on." When they came to a stop, Nadevi shook Yehar's hand and turned to see that the right wing was completely gone. He later remarked, "If I had seen that, I would have ejected." Nadevi managed to keep control of the aircraft thanks to the lift generated by the large fuselage, stabilators, and the remaining wing. He diverted to Ramon Air Base and landed the F-15 at twice the normal speed to maintain the necessary lift, tearing off the tailhook during the landing. He brought the F-15 to a stop just 20 feet from the end of the runway. So, what happened to the F-15 after this incredible feat? The wide body of the F-15 acted as a lifting wing, and combined with the power from the still functioning F-100 turbofans and other control surfaces, it was just enough to keep the Baz in the sky. When McDonnell Douglas officials saw pictures of the damage, they initially thought it was from a taxiing crash on the ground, unable to believe the aircraft had been flown in that condition. In a testament to the incredible durability of these aircraft, the damaged F-15 Baz 957 was transported to a maintenance facility in Tel Naf. There, it was fitted with a new wing and returned to service. 2 years later, that same jet would achieve another victory, this time against the Syrian MiG-23. Nadevi credited the F-15 for their safe return, stating that the aircraft's remarkable capabilities, not just its piloting skills, brought them home. As we wrap up, take a moment and imagine, if you were in the hands of pilot Ziv Nadevi, would you have felt confident flying a plane with only 1 wing? And do you think modern aircraft could handle such extreme situations? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more unbelievable stories like this one.